English, well, you are just like a dog. So which of those words, if we get angry with these words, well, which of those words make us actually angry? Is it you are just like a dog? I mean, which of those words is it that brings forth the anger? Or is it something else other than those words that brings forth the anger? So we should therefore generalize that. Can it be really something found among these words which is in itself negative? So to engage in that kind of analysis of searching for some negativity within those words.
Today, Thinking Kishi that Thin Tigo, Chisu Cameron, which I call it. Just Thin Kishi, Thin Tea, and Tony Gorti. Then near Maresi, the Kushoji, the similar Subuti Chung in Sara. It's Karina, but Zeraton near Mindo Siege, similar to Subuti Chung. And Katuin and Kishi, that did have what they did Zeraton near Mindo, to slap the edge, Comshi Chimico. And in Kilhorshan, meanwhile, that bed Chizuma Butini, Ripotini, that there's no Nayapa, Junshon, Kalihawayara, Ribushi, Timja, and they are Chede. And the digital could not answer it. That quick Junshon, Yash, and that's someone young, the young Junshon to water. And then it traveled this Kemaji, that understanding, but the young tree, young Junshon Josons, she danced. And queer old Nanjukum she teaching. That no North and Sevaton and the Raja, young man, did it up. And Peggy pitches him over college quarters at the rock. She said, and she, young Joshua, young Theodore. Kilgo said to she the Jara, that to she the Parrot and take the sugar, take the turtle, the turtle to be that she's in the sugar. Nothing in the Gasia, the turtle. This how I give.
So he was teaching on emptiness, he was giving teaching on emptiness, and so one of the monks searching for something, he was finding it, and so this monk brings it to the heart, and thinking, so whatever is there cannot be found, whatever I search for cannot be found. See, what he was saying that whenever someone said something, his response would be like, well, if you search for it, you cannot find it. So he got into the habit. And then one day, the monks they had to build a sand mandala. So when you do a sand mandala, they have these devices in the sand which slowly comes through these funnels. And if you make a mistake, then everyone else is kind of affected by it. And that particular monk, he was just been mentioned, so this monk, he made a mistake. And so he made a mistake. And then the other monk who was overseeing the making of the mandala, he got angry with him. And he said, well, if you search for the mistake, you can't find it. So then the monk, the overseer, he started hitting him. He started beating him. And the monk was like, where the mandala is being set up, so this weird kind of table. So he kept running around. And the other monk kept running around and trying to hit him. And the monk was running, was being hit. Cannot be found, while searching that cannot be found, the pain cannot be found. So he kept kind of repeating it, and everyone was laughing about him. The person doing this would have been about the pain doesn't exist while searching.
其实他顶着今年这里面的我呢还过生定的天把的下下那样，这怎么给他多年多生命都，他给多年多了，他给来给，他给。 电力预测的，还有那个整土去过过来是，还有东桥上蛮多。第几对在呢？你还给他那边怎么想的？哪里把谁一顿打的，到土去过过来，到你几星几到星到来了。第第大概来还不得，我第几个的。
Really deeply one understands that phenomena cannot be found, but searching for them, that actually is not sufficient in order to realize, not sufficient for the realization of emptiness. Because we also need to understand the way in which phenomena are dependent on a conceptual consciousness. So how they depend on such a conceptual consciousness. So then you will understand how phenomena exist on another conventional or how they depend on something other, which is in this case conventional conceptual consciousness. Only then, with that understanding, the understanding of their dependence, can we understand the actual deepest level of emptiness.
아니 어느다 하게 타니비 또발라 제니미 정신이 매바다 타니비 또발라 라데비 톤이 예바 어따디 아니 또 하고 숨마다 신다 베디문에란다 또 카버레베스 디시온디 딜라탄다 주주변을 묻히기 주주변을 묻히세나 아니 별다 로실링 나나네 다 하게 로총 제제제제 기타 유딩이 된지체 아니 리트를 기시 당산의 리트를 폐지 주주민이라는 신진 은비리트를 거두진 슈 엔치즈 베이쇼 디자인의 수편이 대발을 앉아 차대진 슈 된지래 다 권한기 김근을 묻힐다 돈이 꼴라 다 하게 교주는 신지 표현을 이기지 어디는 로라 리어래 아니 또 가वर 시에 뒤에 수는 멤버다 아니 싫어도 믿음바 디솔라 아니 또 가वर 기제레마도 수능단 템바다 싫어도 템바다 아니 또 하고 말해스 다디 인지 소요 디간은 눈빛이 잡아서라 전주단 템바스 전주면은
Well, anyway, this is this is what we are supposed to be understood how phenomena do not exist without depending on such a conventional conceptual mind, and how they do exist independent in the minds on such a conceptual mind. So that understanding needs to be developed here. And this he was a great master from Rosalind. So he got more to that last freedom. First he was Geshe instead, and then he became a hermit. And then some mathematics interest into that. And after he was using Huntington, he came as a refugee to India and remained a hermit in meditation. And he offered some written explanations of emptiness to his holiness. And within that writing, this is offered to his holiness, he said that actually emptiness is only possible to realize for those of little merit and little wisdom. So it's really not that difficult to understand unless one has little merit and little wisdom. Let's say, so therefore you need wisdom, you need merit. You can say, I would also an effort, making an effort, because just having those two is not enough. So you need to make an effort.
제가 된지기 랑 진당디 아니 선 원수기 다 진당 진로 신당디 송용디 다저도 주도 진바디 배자는 송요 가서 이내 가서 공부를 해서 송당당 단다 송당 때에서 민자와요
So here we talk about holding on to holding on to autonomous independent existence. Well, here again, the rope in the snake example is again Cypher, which is given as an example, but it's slightly different from the way it was explained previously in the Illumination of the Thought.
미다와도 미팅비기 말해 그 송출라고
So it's not that it's different, but it's just differently explained. So really it's not that the examples are different.
다 대양 변나 타벌을 줄도 따버 대스 어 다디 천리자고 얘기는데 줄도 따버 대 준진기 뢰기 무에네 지들 따버 대 파샤네 어 뢰기 다 대주도 선디다 나에다 심바디 파샤네 엔 줄데 랑기 무에고네 지들이 제바나스 다 주콘 랑기 니수 간지도 파다가 친바이나 유den도 주인이 마주베 이 체벌을 제도메 대신도스 주거는 메디 남샤거를 요마르와 주 컨디지 도민도 유기 된도 르처스도 파샤한 바제가 친구이나 대신도 아니 최디남죠 다 상예 다신 다데라소베 다 최컨디지나 디탐제장 아니 원한수기 마다 마시비 로라 타니비 로라 르유모나 지들나위 능수를 제바 샤네스 타니비 르유모나 능수 지요로 디본바레 디가와레 아니 조부도 되기도 딘지기 능수디 파샤네 봐 능수디 제버제디 능수디 시송기 톤에 제버제 용거로 봐 거야버리 고두자레스 또 제버제 능수디 파샤네 아니 최대남기 되기 랑기 니루 거기 니출 간제 인신은 다 같이 봐이나 지도부 인념도 율기 등도 제바나 율기 등도 은체가 침바이나 지량을 주바 인바다스 아니 지양 가양 요 말했다 강도에 주비 요 말했어 너희는 줄이 파샤는 바지가 침바이나 아니 강도에 주비 요 말했어
Here we present the example so when you take for example the case of a snake here. So a snake that is repeated a lot, a snake here, imaginary is added translation. So a snake that is mistakenly being received or apprehended or described as a killer. So in that case, if we decide how it is apprehended or described from the perspective that apprehends the snake, so here the way it appears to us, the way it appears to be actual, the rope appears to be actual snake, and try to analyze what the snake is in terms of its own nature, then so nature in the sense of what is its actual mode of abiding, its actual mode of being. Since a snake is simply present in that object, the rope, its features cannot be analyzed. So it is similar with regard to these phenomena. So here, these phenomena mean positive phenomena, negative phenomena, self, other, and so on. So in a similar way, other phenomena, therefore, here, if we do decide analysis of how they appear, if we do not engage in analysis, that is to say how they appear to a convention of awareness, and analyze the object itself, what is the manner of being of these objects, they find they are not established in So that's what is saying, using the example of investigate the way phenomena appear, we are unable to see something.
这个时候，所以就是说，如果你放下心上的显现，这件事情先放下来，只去看对境化的时候，你会发现对境其实什么也没有，所以看到全无所有。
但隐居定制热的有的，因为我最乐的定制没什么钱，那他那边西边往的下巴嘛，一百钱呢，他那边西边往的那南下去吧嘛，一百钱呢，去得当得了，然后让给我呢。 아니 샬위 내루 라랑이 뭐네 다 체체에 유딩이지 라랑이 뭐네 코랑이 뭐지 아니 딘디제 디마레 디제세기 딘디지 니출지 라랑이 뭐네 샬위 니출제 유버침바테스 어디다 아니 딘지시그레스
Ignorance does not apprehend phenomena in this way. So we should have first gained this explanation that the sense that phenomena are not being posited independence on or by conventional consciousness, but rather that phenomena exist in actuality or in reality. There is this or that totally independent of such a conceptual consciousness and ways which causes it. Which is why it says here so ignorance does not apprehend phenomena in this way. It apprehends each phenomenon in a manner being such that it can be understood in and of itself without being posited through the force of the condition.
하여튼에 이젠지 숨쉬 시접이 되버 대책이 너무 하지 diwa다 동네 대나 난기 뢰왕기 샤바 민발 랑기 무유고네 율기 등도 주바텔라 다감랑 신스 그래서
What exists objects own essence without being positive to the power of the subjective mind is itself or
다딜라도 랑기 무유고네 주바스 책이 비슷한도 다 디치 단디 뒤로 담바이나 랑기 무회 주바 내가 다 딜라디 랑기 무오기 왕기 주바 랑기 무회 토네 주바 랑기 무회 권네 주바 치디디 랑기 무회 주바 다 지버리 도와드기
So here, the Tibetan word here is not, it doesn't exist in terms of its own essence, in terms of its own nature. So there's different ways of exactly the short form one would be, does not even exist as way of its own nature, way of its own essence. But then the longer version of that, which is exactly the same meaning, is the one that do not exist in terms of its own nature, to the force, to the power of its own nature. Those will have the same meaning.
딜라디 전에 다디 모어디 말라바이나 아니 랑웬 랑기 토네 주바 라 랑닝기 권네 주바 랑닝기 토네 주바 랑닝기 왕기 주바 지버레기도 딜라디 딜라 아니 칙 뒤온디 대기 랑기 무여 권네 주바 나야딜라 아니 랑기 무여 주바세 칙 뒤반나시 랑닝기 토네 주바 딜라 랑닝기스 주바 아니 기스 주바 단답에나 아니 사변을 때니 사변의 왕기 개바이나 사변 기스케 슬레와 디나신이 사변 코랑기 왕기 주바들라 사변 코랑기스 주 딜라디 칙디 비지 제온데 아니 파게 사변디 사변 기스 마주브르다 로 분바디 분베스 마주브르다 딜라 당디 제디 카리타 띵게디라 왜 카레스나 아니 분바디 분베스 똥바 제시도 좋아이나 분바 분베 똥 세고디 요레 다다라나 다 있는 파게 남긴 분바 분베 똥스네야 분바 많이 받아 분바 분베 똥스 고아지는 거 진짜 디니디 칙칙제 된다 분바 분베 똥 수도 고아니도 분바 말에 있어요 고아지 분바디 분베 뇌는 주변 말에 분비 왕기 주비와 말레스 고아지 지난 디 추제 아니 분바 분비 동 배전하는 요래 대지 수니 수기 동 무주고 하라나 요래 도나로래 요래 미니 미기 동 수니 수기 동 자 디키제 아니 수수 말에 아니 분바 말레스니 지시자로부터 디 고아디 말에 이제는 단 되게 나야 분바 분비 동 수디 분바 분비 왕기 마주가 인자 아니 분바 분비 동 분비 마주 어디래
So Krishna here is saying, well, because we describe a pot, for example, we say that it does not establish the way of its own nature, it does not exist by way of its own nature, it does not exist in terms of its own nature, in its power of. If we were to take away the word nature, you could say pot does not exist by way of the pot. The pot does not exist by way or in terms of the pot. It's more difficult in English, it doesn't work the same way grammatically. The pot becomes the agent, and so therefore the object, the pot, does not exist through the pot. So in other words, through the side of by way of, from the side of the pot. So you can even leave away the pot, you can even leave away the word nature, and you can still say a pot is empty of existing by way of the pot. Form is empty of existing by way of form. This is not saying that the pot is empty of being pot. This is not saying form is empty of being form, because that would be contradictory to say pot is actually pot. So therefore, some people misunderstand the sutric citations where it does say that pot is form. It says form is empty by way of being form. I is empty of being empty by way of being an I. No, I is empty of what is empty of by way of being. Empty, no, is empty empty by way of a pot. An eye is empty by way of a pot. So it actually just means that it's empty from being a pot from its own side, from being a pot from the side of the pot. That's all it's saying. Some people misunderstand this. They misunderstand that here the second pot becomes the agent. So therefore the first pot, the pot is empty of being existing by way of a pot. They misunderstand this. They don't understand that really it's saying that the pot exists not from the side of the pot, but from the connection. So therefore they misunderstand this quote and say that a pot is empty of being a pot, an eye is empty of being an eye. So they don't really get the meaning of what it says in this verse.
所以当我们看到评语可用这个概念的时候，不要以为是说的是评语，其实在说的是名字的名字的字体被指定在
这是第二对，安尼我们谈语如意拍的，其实谈人样给讲堂这个，安尼恐怕的让给每主播写一下，一定都安尼先前的处理段的主要嘛的，拍处理段的主播个，安居为tempo主要嘛是tempo主播个，的确我们对安控制动荡的行动差不多是，对了行动的谈一下的用过。但我们谈就可能给路的，我们分别是动，我们分别每年嘛就让动身谈一下嘛，等这几月嘞，因为第别个能够的从下边让行动是给这地嘛的卡巴嘞。
So actually from the point of view of the Prasangika, Madhyamika Prasangika system, if you say, for example, pot exists by way of its own nature, but it doesn't exist as an externally existing phenomena. That would be from the only's point of view. So from the view of the Prasangika, when they look at how the Chitta Mantra functions, they would say the Chitta Mantra would say, the followers of the Chitta Mantra would say that the pot, for example, doesn't exist by way of its own nature and not as an external phenomenon. Or the followers of the Tantrika would say that the pot exists by way of its own nature but not truly. So according to the Madhyamika Prasangika school, they would say that's a kind of other emptiness, being empty of something other. Whereas the emptiness set forth in the Prasangika school, in other words, a pot is empty of existing by way of its own nature, or by way of being a pot, or by way of a pot. That is self-emptiness. And of course, when we talk about other emptiness and self-emptiness in a different context, it has a different meaning.
他的都是呢，他的成立起来的这个些，他가장 라가 나신 제 그 수지 제니 야甚至于呢定这档，양 가장 김시에 자주 나오는 야 세시 제고에定这于呢，那我是专业者。
So in terms of explaining this passage, it shows that this completes the explanation of what these words in this passage refer to. And now we continue our discussion. So if you have any kind of suggestion with regard to search something, and that object can be not be found. So in terms of that, any kind of suggestions, any comments, any questions, you're welcome to make more comment on the suggestion.
Yeah. 想请就是想问之前老师讲的不懂的地方，就是上次葛西兰有讲说，法王认为如果就是有人去请教法王说气象寻求到底是找的是什么，是找花还是花的自信？然后法王说找的是花，如果找的是花的自信，对，找是摄影。那如果找的是花的自信的话，就可能会有细微的所遮破不了，然后会变得有点像自虚派。可以请老师稍微讲解一下为什么会这样子？
di medong bangsin segiles sab itatin tun place. 아니 건들 기대 대제 송바이나 아니 랑기베 이 그래서 기대루 디홍아 기니 카요레스 카이스나 같이
기베카리
랑기베 기 도출 홍아 기니 카요레 카이스나 같이 참모 세상 개토비 말레스 칼치네 비선수디 같이 참모 디 개토비 말레스 그게 디 따투디 내도비 당신 인바이나 아니 가르치네 같이 참모 차상마키하게 니 카요레스
저기 정말
the lady's question was yesterday or the day before yesterday Vishnu spoke of Bishop Anandava when he said when you search for an object of invitation and you cannot find it here, the way we search for something in ordinary terms, or we search for it from the point of view of the Madhyamika, there's no difference, but the object of invitation must be different. So according to Vishapanantara, the object to be imputed is intrinsic. The imputed object that is searched for is an inherent existence. And Geshe-la said that at that time, Muslim said to Vishapanantara, if you assert this, then there's danger that you kind of go in the direction of the Svatantrika. You move towards the kind of assertion of the Svatantrika Madhyamika and not the Prasangika school. So her question was, why is that? If you say I search for intrinsic existence and cannot find that this is incorrect because otherwise you would fall to the Svatantrika school. What is the reason for that?
그게 근데 제가 있는 연주를 두그레스 근데 소리요. 단 무슨 고단도는 아니 트레이닝 거예요. 스키즈 뒤로. 뒤에도 딱 간다려 되기 아니 이 메토드에스 챙겨야돼. 단 메토드 지금 참아는 쇼우래. 메토드 미치마디 메토드 도고래. 이 메토드에 럽세트 제가 주는 메토드 큐니 메토드지. 뒤에도 다 체마스는 진짜는 미루어라 봐. 엄마너와 저거와 다 미루어라나. 되게 유강의 관계지 유바디. 다다지 문진체나 아니 체마. 유레유 다디다 미팅버진 문진체나 루어레스 나와. 다 체마 라버레디 아니 그에 파게 도 럽사디라 큐니 메르다 제가 저는. 이래도다 뭐 내도 진리 체마디 맞추세지 큐니 샤사라고 합니다. 이게 주다 오만기 뒤나 맨날 분진도가 추이래 그래. 분진도가 추이래 그래. 맨 처진에 야 체마인데 그래. 레디 아니 체마다도 무료 shagoare 추이래도 노겨져 shagoare. 이 긴두메바 가르레스나 그 체마 송사디 아니 메도진비 도가이나 메도디다 체마송 메도디를 제가 체마다는 자까지 메도디다 체마송 다 메도기 된지 아니 세네면도 다 신다카시지가 아니 출벌송사디다 체벌송사디 개버체예요. 다 된주에 따는 아니 메도스는 체벌송사디다 쿠출사디 개버체에 메든지 딜라나 다 체마샤마 통이 자기도 강에 채웁니다. 딱 같이 체마 같이 샤버리네. 제가 디디고 그 뭐 출세지 퀸 메든지 되게 이것도 잘 잡네. 되게 딱 보는 디제가 있는 세만세에 된다디 즉 유메세에 어제 유메 다시 컨데스치고 디도 디민도 디레 디마레 다시 컨데스치고 예
He says that, okay, so how do we fall into the extreme of how do we go towards the direction of the So actually, first Dana gave this explanation with regard to when you have a valid technology to see the flower. So you perceive a flower outside of the geyser is non-deceptive with regard to the flower. So you have to say it is non-deceptive. Why? Because it perceives
권해내기 여기도 좀 뭐지 여기 권해내기 제상당 언제 뒤도 비미도세 타주의 간제스 제고 디레 디마레스 타주의 간제스 제고
So how do you decide whether something is this or is not that? How do we decide that? How do we decide something is this or not that?
이제기 아니 뇌기 지금 미비찬 뇌기 아니 지금 미비찬에 안티도 뇌기 마미 비찬에 안미도스 타주의 도스 지기도 대상기 단거를 단기와 말아 무슨 뇌기 통세 상황 미지 참아 아니 예비 잡아민다 주셔도 되는 거 근데라도 달러를 제발 chen 한도 양다버지 아니 또 미그나 아니 요 가서 요 말했어 근데 너 양다버만 인지기 미네 요거에 요 말했어 다도 제운데 안도 양다버지 다 간제 너 체마지기 미나 아니 요 봤어 나도 그래 체마만 인니 로지기 미나 요거다 두고 말했다니까 이 체미를 우리 친미세 그 차와
So how do you decide? Just having the mind perceiving something as such is not enough to decide if it's this or not something else. Or not perceiving something and then doesn't mean the object is not that something else. So you have to make a first no persuasion in the sense that it is not necessarily something that is perceived as being such doesn't mean it's they're incorrect minds and they're correct minds. So they're false minds and they're minds that are correct with regard to reality. So this is why we differentiate between valid cognizers and non-valid cognizers. So it is a valid cognizer which perceives its object correctly. So it's in accordance with reality. We can establish independence on a valid cognizer whether something is this or not.
제상 안에 하게 샤워기 라조 두 하게 통대다 두 선바도 안에 체매 공도체 안에 리봉기다 암조를 추는 라고 두 선바디 이 체마만 이거지 그래서는 아니 하게 로디기 두 체매 하게 밀어왔어 지디 로디 두 나바는 하게 따다 유리 요바다 로니디 따다진 밀어 지디 루 어디 계시고 봐
So when we say, for example, on the way there's a juniper tree, then if there really is a juniper tree there, well, we decide independently. So the guys are perceiving it for the we know it's over there. So this is not from the side of the cognizer, it's from the side of the object over there. There is there's an actual juniper tree. Whereas when we perceive, for example, the horns of a rabbit, in that case, the horns of a rabbit, they actually appear to be the horns, so there's actually no horns over there with the rabbit. So therefore, we know that in one case, there is actually a juniper tree on the other side of the hill, whereas in the second case, the horns of the rabbit are just an appearance to the mind. 因此呢，就是说，当对镜现在所指的对镜上面有这个不齐全，没有竞争性，有这个可对齐。它在拓展的例子上面，竞争性所指的对齐，就证明它是可以齐全。
第几对阵呢？他给康贝角落了，米奇解决呢，落这些钱呢，康贝角落米奇都生整个了，到位。他到位的康贝角落了，你有把这个米路哎，可达到可能康贝角落米都到那些米了吧？因为到位的米都带的嘛到米的看着因为看到看着一看着去年那一3年看的。 去年开给药嘛了，到不得有的。我们那些的，定期买的人给米针米来讲不起用到药嘛了，我们那些的米呢，过去看到有苏公生开的那几个药了，因为到不得有的米都带针嘛到米去就现在就是去年的，就是到不得他给米了，他给米都是到不得看了他，那么他们就都不多，我出了嘛嘞，可出的多的是。 거랑기 나와디 남네 되기로 왔다 된지라고 왔다 거랑기 나와디다 민미디 이르메진 된지진 남디고 했어 그래서 출발했어
So So, for example, if you are standing somewhere in front of a house, and behind the house you hear the voice of someone. So in that moment, you know that there is someone there. You know your conceptual mind can perceive that there is a person over there. This conceptual mind is non-deceptive with regard to the fact that there is a person. It is therefore a valid recognizer in that it can realize that there is a person there. But it is not non-deceptive. It does not understand what kind of person that is. The conceptual mind of that person does not perceive whether this person, what kind of color they have, and what is the color of their skin, perceive what is the shape of their body, whether they look nice, pleasant, or unpleasant, etc. So the conceptual mind cannot perceive that. So it is only non-deceptive with regard to the fact that there is a person in general. And moreover, that conceptual mind is a mistaken mind because the general image of the person, the meaning generality or the generic image of the person appears to that conceptual mind, and it appears to be mixed. It appears that this generic image of the person is the actual person. So from that appearance point of view, the conceptual consciousness is mistaken.
제가 초진에 출발해라. 초진에 미루어래라. 이 긴두차 연구도 시대 아니 출세디 가가제 아니 미루어 성사디 가가지 요체도 이내다 단다디 숑의 장만 문인인데 이나 인지기 체동이 빼주실래기 이내 뒤처럼은 나쁘지만 저러면 나는 여러 먹었어 그래 다도스라나 다른 문에 나왔다는데 나와 충중 통고도 미길다 자 나와 충중 통고도 아니 나와 충중 가져야지 도스는 이 파고다 가서 도스에서도 근데 통고도 디지도 전에 다 된데 미시디 출도 그래서 나와 충중 말어 친구 쉬지어로 양 초진네 나와 통하는 시 나와 여러 거기 제 초진이 미루어제 초진 주어제 다 아니 가제 주어도 뭐 주어 가르래도 이와친 그 나와 통화 전기 전에 뭐 출거래 만들어래 그래서는 나와 통하는 시 나와 여래 이내에 파기 나와 충중 통화의 차에 책이 차에 주거래 그 충중 통화를 충주 요 말에서 이와치에 도왔어.
So from another perspective, it seems, so therefore when you have this concept of consciousness, it is non-deceptive with regard to the person over there, but it is deceptive or mistaken with regard to the appearance image of the person. So there's no problem here because from the lower stage point of view, there's no problem because you're not non-deceptive or deceptive with regard to the same object. You're mistaken with regard to the generic image and you're non-deceptive with regard to the person. And again, I said I will give you another example which is just for the point of view those who have already studied the scriptures because under the background this is very easy to establish. When you say, for example, you look at the moon, so actually you say that the eye consciousness you perceive the moon, you perceive the actual moon, so there's no mistake with regard to perceiving the moon, but with regard to the size of the moon. The moon is in actuality huge, but what appears to you is just a tiny kind of moon. So therefore the eye consciousness, from one point of view, is non-deceptive with regard to just the aspect of the moon itself. However, it is mistaken with regard to the size. So it's a different kind of aspect that you're perceiving, a different aspect of the mind is mistaken with regard to. So the mind is non-mistaken with regard to the moon, but it's mistaken with regard to the size of the moon.
那见到月亮这个部分没有错，因为如同你所见，月亮是存在的。但是你把月亮看成那个大小这个部分呢，却是看错了。所以会说呢，在见月的这个是它有正确的也有错误的部分。
레데 다 탄주를 이제 시험도 더 충중 통해야지 충중 무인의를 내가 나신 다와디의 무인의를 요마로 지선 다 딜을 맞추어야 나서기 송사지 하게 유르던 샤토군이가
So that's from the point of view of the Prasashuddha school, to say that the moon is not small, the moon is small, well actually there is no moon from the side of the object, so the moon is not positive from the side of the object, so there's a difference.
到底能够你所看到这个样子的，能够让你说没有看错的那个对方、那个对象到底是什么？你所能值的那个对象是什么？其实你没有办法指出一个你没有错误的那个对象。
저 딘지 삼수의 레비 갱기 아니 배나라라 뭐지게 단주를 채마요 말했어요. 그 만노스디 샤투고 말하게.
So therefore, in the Tibet, there are many scholars who say that according to the Shivalika school, you cannot posit any valid cognizer. Why? Because there's nothing that you're not more mistaken about. So there's always some mistake there, so you cannot therefore posit a valid cognition.
제자다 만노스 물루스 바기 만노스지 퀸이 마출스지 퀸이 매댕이. 이내 채마이래 레 밀루당지 셰투바이나 다디 텐주 간에 차기요래 다 유진강의 디다바나신 유강라 다 바기 무연의 실력균이 매댕이 이내 다 유에 내리다 텐주 간에 차고 디민내 찍으다 그랬디 제사다 대기 메도 제스니 말아바체 남는 특기민도 디강라도 그런 신신 바기지 넘베 자르고도 라나 텐지 고아디 말레웨기 니가요 레스 number 탐지의 출발이지 여러 고아디 말레웨기 레벨의 계획이 슬라우를 다 갈라고 레마투 고데테마 투베기 니가 요레스 디르다 니가 나오를 다
So here, according to the Kazanisa school, there's a way of saying that, so nonetheless, even though there's nothing about with regard to which you're not wrong, with regard to which you're not mistaken, so there's always some mistaken appearance, nonetheless, you could still know an object. So, therefore, you have two aspects. You have the consciousness itself, and then you have the object itself. So there's these two aspects. So you have the mind is mistaken with regard to the object, but it nonetheless can realize the object. And so the way the object exists, so it exists as the way as described before. So therefore, there's the danger, Vishala saying that therefore you fall towards the psychological school because in the end there's nothing you can really posit. There's nothing you can actually posit. If you posit this kind of truly existent flower or a truly existent object that then you search for. So therefore there's this danger that you are unable to posit anything.
并不是说会有变成字句派的危险，而是说没有理解而没有办法，而没有理解而可能会有mistaken with regard to the sense of the object, but if you still say the object is understood, so you have this就是以往的话是这个 station, but you can still realize that this is something that when the psychological scope is possible, and so the object is the same object, it's just the intrinsic existence of the object, then there's danger for the psychological because you cannot say something that can be understood, but you still mistake it as the object. 人家是因为没有办法拿到那个关键描述的位置，而说一说，所以我们应该要说我们讲是花的自信，而不是花，就会这样，所以应该要危险还是问题，就会有这种状况产生。
这位帝国的修的协议，那他차상시에는 와타는 되시도 아니 이는 우마다 상의도 저희는 아니 나린 셈어 독자 순주 소지 나와 독자 순주 소지기 거기 이팅 입어대다 따다 가장 동시대인가 얘들 공범이 담았어요. 어디네 마치시다 디 되다디나 상담은 편도 요구를 드립니다.
With regard to this issue or this point, Tishala will go more into this, it will become clearer as we go along. But for those who studied Madhyamika, you should look at the Tibetan page. The Tibetan page is 621 of the English page. If you look at if you look at 177, I think.
就可以在此处加上这几行内容，然后去帮助，应该可以再得到更多的理解。
if you look at page 181, then this is a point to think about. This is an issue to reflect upon. 181 in the English translation.
어디 진주 진시 나와이나 아니 이된다디 톤 데스 템그레이트.
So he was saying that if you read through these lines here, where in particular it says these lines that over the currents and so forth of these things, no, sorry, it says thus the conceptual consciousness, etc. So from that onwards, if you read these few lines, it may become a little clearer. It's almost in the middle of the page. It talks about the conceptual consciousness and hence the aggregates as impermanent. So if you read that, it may become clearer. More questions? Questions?
휴이다 리돈에 다 먼저 가는 유진의 참말에 아니 만화와를 제발 다 먼저 치라 치들 잡을 때에는 단기게 배시아이니 만화에 지도 좀 하는지 그렇지 직샤웨이 에너지 그렇지 티니 노르만으로 되는 탈투를 봐 얘네들은 루시 바질라니 공도 주야면 탈투이 되나 아니 샤베 라조랑다 아니 리몽기 가지고 유저로 같이 가면 암조 티니랑라 콘토에니 아니 유르게 뭐네 시와티니 참아인다 참아마이 비치버 치니로 참는데 대차소나 아니 당한 좀 된루티 유르게 뭐네 두바도 참아요
되게 가시오레 레보라 메스 레보라 지밀로디 아니 노르바레 쉐와라 지밀로디 마노르바레 시키버체르바 치버체 가르스니 레보라디 두 민두스 쉐웨라디 두 파기 퇴유바다 유이데 유진디 따로 튕기도 지 튕기 민두스 디다바나 유인문이 치버체고 차유도 와스
어떻게 나중에 체주 망고죠라니 딱바다 야포레 야고마리 체주 망고지 가지고 샤바디 아니 디스파 코제로 시레샤스 다 수진 라바드 조이나 그런 주진 가망가마 같은 투샤지 마도 루이가 수요디 시라 세우지도 아스티니 다 tunzu 진비 쉐바디 양다레 수디 가지고 라바라가 다가 나한테가 되는 지니 아니 쉐테다데 진비 쉐바디 양다가레 탈두나 아니 아주 유르 다가란데 아니 데라 콘투고에서 차도부터
So his question is basically